Well, hello, hi, welcome everyone. Good morning and good afternoon for USA people based. Thanks for joining us today. Maybe we have to wait for 1 or 2 minutes just to give a chance for all people to join, and then we will start in few. Perfect. So this is a conversation about how biosensor and product design innovation can work hand in hand to unlock faster development, reduce risk, and ultimately improve outcomes for patients. We're joined today by two great speakers here. We have Alex Joseph, like Healthcare Marketing Director at Linxens. Hi, Alex. And
Hello.
Casey Armstrong, CEO of Nocturnal. And myself,
Hello.
Sabine Cassette, and I'm field marketing manager at Linxens. So, Alex and Casey, maybe you would like to start by introducing yourselves.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm the sales and marketing director at Linxens. My background lays into molecular biology and cell biology. I've been working mainly in the medical device industry for almost 20 years at PerkinElmer and Thermo Fisher, delivering more lab-based assays and point of cares. And I joined Linxens especially to drive up the expansion into the healthcare as a medical contract manufacturer, developing and supplying solutions in remote health monitoring.
Thank you.
I'm Casey Armstrong. I'm the president and founder of Nocturnal Product Development. I've been in medical devices for 25 years now. My background is hardware engineer. I've worked in drug delivery, wearables, implantable devices. I started Nocturnal Product Development in 2011. The goal of doing development mostly in the cardiac electrophysiology space. And since then, we've expanded into many other areas, but our focus still remains on ultra low power devices, active implantable and wearable.
Thank you, Casey. So then, Casey, let's bring this to life. Then, can you share a real example of how Nocturnal and Linxens work together to overcome development challenges?
Absolutely. So this is actually a very recent example and very relevant. If you want to put it to the next slide, we can kind of introduce it. So one of Nocturnal's longtime clients, Future Cardia, is developing a novel implantable for heart failure monitoring. As part of their FDA submission, they learned that they needed to acquire a substantial amount of cardiac data. While we did develop an active implantable device for Future Cardia that has been used in humans, the amount of data we needed to acquire made the number of implantable procedures we had to conduct prohibitive for Future Cardia. The study that would require was massive. However, the FDA allowed us to gather data from the surface rather than implantable. If we are able to do that in a repeatable and practical way. So the challenge was, how do you take an implantable device and get data from the surface? You can't just tape an implant to a patient's body. So with cooperation from Linxens, we were able to very rapidly transform Future Cardia's implantable hardware and embedded software into a more wearable version that still maintained the core characteristics of the implant that are critical to our submission, and gather surface data in, frankly, record time. We were able to, because we have so much experience with ultra low power hardware and embedded software, we were able to basically create a patch product on the electronic side quickly. Linxens has deep experience in the stick to skin portion of the product, so we didn't have to develop that from scratch. They essentially already had that in hand with materials and processes that were already approved for human use. So in a matter of only a few months, you can flip to the next slide, Sabine.
Yeah.
In a matter of only a few months, we were able to combine our electronics, Linxens' already proven patch technology, And within a few months, we were gathering human data already, which is remarkable. This would have been a year of development, starting from scratch, and it would have been a killer to Future Cardia's submission schedule and strategy and overall business strategy. So this is a prime example of how we can accelerate time to market for data gathering. And not only was it fast, it was inexpensive compared to starting from scratch. So we saved Future Cardia cost, we saved Future Cardia time, and we dramatically reduced risk, because for both companies, both Linksys Healthcare and Nocturnal, these are technologies and techniques that we've used many, many, many times for years. So even though this is a novel product, we were able to apply our expertise and our experience to substantially de-risk and accelerate data gathering for Future Cardia.
Yeah, that's interesting comments about the risk, because the risk is taken on both ways when companies like you, Linksys, and but also the startups we work with, they both take the risk working with us, making sure that we can deliver. And of course, if they go with such a platform which has been proven, developed over years already and available, it also brings insurance to us that the customers is more intent to success, because we know that the platform they're going to use works. I mean, if we take the example of Future Cardia and Dispatch, this is something I think it took us 2 to 3 years to develop, just the patch itself with the right conductive ink, the socket, making sure it's IP67 for the use for the long-term, for long-wear use. So it's really building trust in both ways with partners, industrial partners like Nocturnal and Linksys, that know what they do, they have expertise in this specific application, but also that it brings us confidence that the startup we work for has higher chance of success, because the product will not take a lot of time, will not take a lot of money out of them, because of course they are a startup, but also they have a product we know that works. We don't have to develop something new, and you always have the doubt, will it work? Will it be adopted? In this case, we know what it does already, and that's really important.
Yeah, which is great already, a strong case showcasing what happens when tech and collaboration comes together smartly. Yeah. Thank you both. So come to you, Alex. What broader trends are driving the current demand for biosensor-based solutions?
Right. So that's an important point, is what drives the adoption of biosensor and remote health. So what you can see here, and that's of course what I see, is there are two major trends or drivers. One is technology, the other one is more on the society part. So for the society is the fact that there is a higher need for remote health and remote testing, remote monitoring, and continuous monitoring. The first one is because of aging population, and it's correlated with the chronic disease, a rise of prevalence of chronic disease. We all know about the diabetes, but we have the cancer that drives the requirement to get repeatedly tested or continuously monitored for whatever vital signs. And the fact, of course, you don't want to go to hospital, you don't want to get to physicians all the time, several times a week to get these tests done. So if you have a system that allows you to get tested and monitored at home, everyone takes it. Then it's the increased awareness on infectious disease. We all know that since the COVID, everyone was used to get tested at home by themselves because there was too many people. And so people realized now the product exists, the technology exists, that you can just test yourself and get your data uploaded through your smartphones and get connected to your doctor. So that has unlocked, let's say, an approach for a lot of people in many countries that they can do it themselves with the same quality of the test than if it was done in pharmacies or at hospitals. And then one of the key driver is really the fact that people, we all see in many countries, North America, in Europe, there is this shortage in healthcare workers, professionals. So it decreases the quality of the service in the clinics, means, of course, no one wants to go to the clinics or to the hospitals, but now you really go when it's needed. And if there is a solution that allows you to have a small care, to have just a basic blood test done outside of the hospital, you take it and you're ready to do it yourself or to do it out of the normal usage, what we have been educated to do past centuries. And that has, let's say, educated people that things could be done differently in more connected way and remotely. That's been the first from people's side. The other side has been the technology. So it evolved together. So there's been the rise of, we talk a lot about the artificial intelligence, which is, and it's not one factor. You can see here, I mentioned also the connectivity and the miniaturization, the low energy settings. All of this together, I mean, if you take only one, you have missing pieces. The miniaturization and the low energy allows you to have multiple measurement or continuous monitoring. If you need a long wear time devices, you need very efficient energy electronic devices to be very small, to be very comfortable. But since you have a lot of data, you need first the connectivity to be able to send that data out. It's not going to be done directly by the smartphone or by the patient. It has to go to the cloud and to servers. And because of the amount of data to make them smart or meaningful, AI has been very helpful. So the combination and the unlock of these technologies we have seen about past 10 years with emergence and now the acceleration is just unlocking first the capabilities to do it and the acceptance to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll add that. Yeah, I'll add that gathering data is underestimated by a lot of companies who even know that that's what they're doing. For a lot of these companies, every wearable and even implantable device we see now is an IoT device, right? Almost everything sends data to the cloud, and there's an app because there's a user interface. And for a lot of these companies, the data is really the product in the end. It's
Yeah.
really what everybody needs, and the device and the part that's on the patient is incidental. It's the information you need. So it's how do you minimize the impact of having to put something in or on a patient and focus on the data. The data needs to be high quality. You generally need a lot of it. It needs to go somewhere for persistent storage, like the cloud. And all of that ends up being a technical challenge, but in the end, it's the data that really matters. And that's where having a low risk path to getting the data, which is what you really care about, is so helpful. Because I think a lot of times you have a chicken and egg problem. To get a technology to market, you need data, but you need to have a device that you can use on humans to get the data that you need to get the device approved for human use. So when you can use building blocks like Linxens and their nocturnals, it helps you lower the barrier to actually starting to collect data, which is the thing that really shows value unless you raise more money and build more value and raise more money and build more value.
Yeah, so this is really about balancing like quality, power, and usability for all of these technologies. Indeed.
Always.
Great. This brings us to the next topic. So what makes this collaboration between nocturnal Linxens so efficient when it comes to time to market?
If you look to the next slide, I think, well, it's not all about the numbers, but I think it reflects, well, a key point of both nocturnal and Linxens, which comes from the expertise, not only the expertise we both have in our respective domain, it's also, let's say, the field expertise. Talking for Linxens, it's not something we started recently, and it's not something we did at low scale. So Linxens has been producing electrochemical sensors for clinical application or patches for a while. Just talking about the biosensors themselves, they've been used in human applications, and you can see for more than hundreds of millions of sensors delivered for point of care. And if we talk about the patch, today Linxens is the world largest manufacturer for remote ECG patches. So the fact we know what it takes to make a product from scratch, we know the challenges you may meet technology-wise, industrially, regulatory-wise, on our part, from the converting, the printing, the cutting, the packaging, everything. The customization, based on what do you expect the product to do and what the performance to get, and making sure that is addressing a medical requirement. So the expertise we have gained over decades really makes it that we don't only execute what customer requests. We really support them and guide them to make sure they get the best and the shortest, in the quickest way, the product.
What about Nocturnal?
Yeah, so in many ways, we're very similar. We have very deep experience implementing hardware and software solutions for ultra low power applications, high reliability, ultra low power applications. In addition, since the vast majority of our clients are early stage startup companies, we think like an early stage company. We're very cost aware, we're very schedule aware. The things that matter a lot when you're trying to get a technology to market and you're relying on investor funding and it's tranched based on milestones, is we understand that process. We know what all that means. Many of us have been in the startup world, so we've worked for startups and we know how that feels day to day. And now again, our clients are all startups, so we kind of live that life vicariously through all of them. The reason we do fixed cost is because our clients need to know how much they have a certain amount of money. They need to know how much it's going to cost to do a certain thing. Going over budget, they just don't have the money, right? They also need to know how long it's going to take. We've done this before. While we can't guarantee a timeline, we've done it so much that we're almost never wrong. They need to hit their milestones so they can get more money and stay alive. So we give them particular means to do that. We've done it before. It's a high probability it's going to work the way they expect. Working with Linxens gives us that same piece on a part that we don't do, which is skin contact. Linxens has technology that we know is going to work. We know how long it takes them to do it. We know what it's going to cost. So it makes the whole thing more predictable. Startups need predictability, even though they might not even say that. It is what they need.
Yeah, indeed. That's a game changer actually for early stage team. Huh?
Yeah. The same thing with power consumption, since it's one of our things. We're very good at making things ultra low power. You can never have too little power consumption in an implantable or wearable device. It's something we've done enough that kind of like cost, we can say, hey, we think we can hit this power target, and we generally do. Again, predictability is everything here.
Great. So now let's explore how this partnership applies to real world. So Casey and maybe Alex, what are some of the most impactful use case that you've seen so far, and where do you see the most momentum?
Yeah. So going to next slide. So we proposed today 3 use case, and the first one is considered the most important for different reasons. Also because today it's the biggest market, and this is due to one of the largest in terms of incidents, the largest impact on the population. So the cardiac monitoring, going for cardiac event or arrhythmias. So it's a clear applications for Linxens and Nocturnal, and the patch technology use high precision functional printing and the industrial assembly. The idea is really to reliably and accurately capture the electric signal from the heart on every single device we produce. And it's really meant to be a long wear time patches. So they are used on a daily basis. As mentioned, we are the largest manufacturer for this device. We're producing for the medical device industry. They are meant to be comfortable, waterproof. You can go up to 14 days today, could be longer in the future. But if you compare to the system that are still in use in many countries, I'm based in France and most of European countries, we don't have these devices. It's way ahead in terms of comfort and accuracy, simply because the longer you monitor the heart activity, the higher chance you have to detect any events, any adverse events. And so it's safer both for the clinicians and for the patient, just because many of these events, unfortunately, they don't happen. They may happen once in a week only. And if you don't monitor at that exact time, you miss it. So having those permanent, continuous remote monitoring really helps everyone and just make it safer for the entire population.
Yeah, it's impressive. The idea of recording 14 days. It's wow.
Yep.
Yeah, clearly, as you put here, optimizing for power and performance is the challenge for this on the hardware and software side. Getting the fidelity you need, the high sample rate you want, and being able to do it for 2 weeks is a power challenge, especially with some of these devices actually transmit data routinely. Some of them record for a full 14 days and then you pull it all off at the end. Some of them transmit intermittently. In either case, you've got a different balance of power and space and performance challenges. But cardiac is one of the things the nocturnal has done probably more than any other physiologic signal space. And of course, as with all of the use case we're talking about, signal quality matters a ton. Your analysis is only as good as your signal quality.
Yeah, you're right.
Which is a function of both circuit and software performance and skin contact performance.
Yep.
So maybe you want to move to the next
Yeah,
use
the next
case?
application, it's something I find quite exciting. So not to say it's not exciting, but this is a case we've been working since more than 2 years at Linxens, and very interesting for the future simply because it's a sweat monitoring. Sweat is very promising as a sample, let's say, for analysis, because of course it's non-invasive. It's very difficult, a lot of interference, a lot of, let's say, molecules you don't want to sense, you don't want to detect that are interfering with what you want to measure. So I briefly mentioned at the beginning, so Linxens has different core capabilities, including the electronic skin patch manufacturing and the biosensors. The biosensors means wide diversity, and that includes also electrochemical sensors. And we are able to combine both the electrochemical sensors, either printed or produced on the flex PCB, combined with the patch construction. And so we can easily have this heart monitoring activity or up to what the customer wants, this biomarker detection. We put some examples like classic on the sweat, you have like sodium, potassium, lactate. So we see this growing interest for this sweat-based marker, basically because the invasive approach attract a lot of companies for initial use in sport, of course, and then that is expanding little by little as the science improve into medical use. I think the latest we've seen, I think it was published a year ago, there was a publication on the CRP monitoring from sweat, which was fully correlated with the CRP levels you have in the blood, which is a strong marker for inflammation. So potentially monitoring on sweat, you could directly monitoring inflammation without getting any needle or any blood sampled. And we have this ability to combine the converting, the cutting, the assembly process with this printed electronic to have this complex biosensor construction all together.
Yeah, so this opens like new possibilities maybe for not only athletes, but chronic care and stress management and so on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll add that in this and other chemical sensor applications that Linxens also supports, once again, signal quality and performance of electronics and things matter and they work together, especially with chemical sensors. They work more closely with the skin contact and the chemistry of the sensor and the construction sensor. And benefit to our relationship here is we work pretty closely with Linxens development engineering, so the feedback loop is short. You don't have to manage this company over here to do your software and this company over here to do your sensor and then translate between the two of them. We can actually handle both ourselves.
I would insist on that point, especially when we go to sweat monitoring, because it's much more complex than a lot of people think. And the signal treatment is super important in a sense. We can measure a lot of things with different biosensors. Biosensor family is super large. You have a lot of different biosensors. Each of them needs different signal treatment. And as mentioned, when you are, if we talk about the athletes, the sport applications, mean the people, they move a lot. So first, it's not easy to get a patch that is properly collecting signals. That's first. Then you might have different signal. I was mentioning the heart, which is an electric signal. You might have biomarkers, so you measure concentrations through electrochemical sensors. And all of this sweat is not a clean sample at all. You can imagine all the pollution you have just in the air, plus potentially all the products you put yourself on your skin. Getting a proper signal, it's both part of Linxen's expertise, having sensitive sensors, and nocturnal expertise, being able to discriminate the right signal, stable, to have a proper measurement monitoring. So yeah, we may think in sport it's not that important, but as said, there is a lots now of development and application that goes beyond the sport into the medical, because all these biomarkers, especially when they are combined, they have a very strong implication in medical application for the patients. So the quality of the signal is very important and super difficult in these applications.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it's a very tight collaboration between the sensor and the electronics.
Yeah.
So from sweat now to maybe temperature monitoring.
Yes, that's the third and the last example we wanted to highlight is the temperature monitoring. Because as mentioned, with these capabilities, we have to combine the sensors and the patch, diversity of sensors, so we can embed the temperature sensors directly into the patch design. It could be the printed sensor for printed electronic or electronic component. Both of them are fine. It depends, let's say, of what we want to monitor and how we want to monitor this. And you find a lot of applications. We had customers already with this temperature monitoring combined with the sweat monitoring we just discussed before for athletes, because they wanted to know temperature of the air, not of the people that are impacting the how you sweat. But if you think of the people, of the core body temperature, that has a direct impact, of course, on fever monitoring, especially when you think about the infant, the babies, all the elders that cannot, either they don't feel themselves, they don't have the capacity to feel it accurately or to tell it. That's one. But also you have for fertility, a lot of women, they track the fertility based on the body temperature to know when they can have babies. And instead of using basic thermometers every day or several times a day, you can have a patch that lasts for several days and gives you real-time temperature on your smartphone, and that makes life easier. So both for the babies or elders or for the fertility, this is a quite I would say very driving consumer product to show how printed electronics, biosensing in a patch can help people.
Yeah,
So yeah,
we've yeah, this is a tricky one because there are several different places in your body that you may monitor temperature depending on the application, and some of them require the device to be extremely small, or it doesn't fit there, or it's not comfortable, or it's annoying, and that drives tiny electronics, good thermal contact from the patch in a very small space, and it's got to have longevity. We've actually developed body surface temperature devices that have lasted as much as a year. They're not quite a continuous monitoring application, but they're close. So we're very familiar with what it takes to make a temperature sensor last a long time. And especially when you get into pediatric applications, like your picture here, the sensors have to be very small, and in places where they're not going to bother the baby and affect their behavior. On adults, they can't get in the way of normal behavior as well. So temperature is seems like an easy thing to measure, which it is conceptually, but the application on the body ends up being the real challenge here.
Yeah. What's important also, so we see now the picture with a baby, but as I mentioned, so temperature patch, whether it's on the baby, infants, adults, elders, and where on the body to be placed, depending what exactly you want to be measuring. The sensor might be similar as long as we measure, let's say, core body temperature, but the patch construction would be very different, just because, and that's part of let's say, expertise and partnership we need. The skin is different. You will sweat differently at that part. That's part of the body, depending where is the location. Means also the skin adhesive has to be different because when you're an adult and you want to get a patch for a couple of days, it's not the same than if you're a newborn where the skin is much more sensitive and fragile. You don't want to peel off and get, bleeding skin, which may happen with a very, very sticky skin adhesive. So that's part of the how we make the entire solution. Is not just making a product for everyone. Okay, that's just a patch that stick and measure temperature. It's really something that has to fit, being accurate, safe, not getting skin irritation, accurate in the data collection for the signal treatment, being cost effective also because it's both making a good product. It means it's a product that sells. Okay, that is a commercial success. To be a commercial success, it's not only working in terms of performance, it has also to be cost effective for the people it addressed. So having the right construction is not only a construction that works, it's also a construction that is cost effective.
Yeah, so everything around reliability, cost effectiveness, and quality and data.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that much so far. So it's a very good point. An important part of this, both in the patch materials and the electronic components, is identifying and sourcing components that have longevity, that they're going to be around 10 years from now, that aren't stratospherically expensive, but that are reliable enough for the application. This is something that our two companies have a lot of experience doing with medical devices, is trying to optimize the balance between cost and reliability and availability over the long term, because it's great if you can find a part that does the job that's super inexpensive right now, but if it goes away in 2 years and forces you to do a redesign around it and a new regulatory paperwork and so on, it's kind of defeats the purpose. So that's another.
Yeah, I think we estimated recently at Linxen, so in healthcare, about 20%, a bit more than 20% of the project we have are redesign of existing product. And it's not only from the startups. We have a lot of big companies just because sometimes they just have, deadlines to meet. So they go to the quickest way. But the problem is they quickly meet issues either because cost-wise it's not properly designed, and that may restrict them to some markets where there is a reimbursement or the reimbursement is higher, or because also they are restricted in terms of scale up because the way they design the product does not allow them to produce more at scale and at cost. So they end up after, let's say, 1 to 3 years in the market to have to make a redesign of the product, which means also requalifications, and they have to repay for, the design is different, so it's a new product basically for the authorities. So they lose time, they lose money, and then they have also to rebuild all the market launch. So that's why, let's say, being right from the first time, we know it's not easy, but it's super important to go with partners that have the experience in making those products, because as I said, it's not only being a subcontractor, is being a partner, where Noctuland has a tremendous experience in their field. We have a tremendous experience in our field. And so we are capable to provide advices, to counsel the customers what is the right way to do it.
So again, this is the importance of this partnership between tech and data, right? So let's bring us to the last section of our roundtable before going to the Q&A session. So looking ahead, what's next in biosensor innovation? What can we expect next in biosensor and data collection innovation?
And that's talking about future. So I think it's more about the trends we perceive and the feeling. If you see on the last slide, personal feeling is we will go further into the multiplexing, so multi-signal analysis. The fact the miniaturization and the AI being more general and common in the tools, that will allow more data treatments, easier, and being cost effective still. So with a higher adoption, we will see more and more devices that measure more than one parameter. So far now we have a democratization of ECG. We have products coming to the market with ECG, oximetry, and body temperature, which are totally different sensors. And more we will see those devices coming to the market. And that's thanks to the AI, essentially.
Yeah, with all that multi-parametric data gathering, as we talked about the future card at the beginning, companies are going to have a problem with proving that they can do what they can do without having the data to prove it, right? You need a lot of data to feed to AI before you can have AI actually do something useful. And getting that data is a challenge when you don't already have a device. So the last thing a company needs to be worrying about is, hey, is my adhesive going to be biocompatible? When they need to really be focusing on what am I going to do with this data and how am I going to prove that the data does that my algorithm does what it's supposed to do with data. They shouldn't be worried about how do I design a circuit to get ECG or how do I make it last off of a battery that fits on a patient. They need to focus on data because especially when you're trying to do correlation of multiple biosensors at once. And for both Linxens and Nocturnal, as you said, there's 3 different sensors, but we know how to gather data from all of those. We know how to build all those sensors. You know how to build those sensors. We know how to gather data from them.
Yep.
So we can accelerate all of that.
So
and
it's not just, sorry, it's not just more data, it's about actionable insight and getting to them faster, right?
Yes, the fact that when you have different data, as mentioned, getting electrical activity from the heart and just body temperature, it's 2 different data, nothing correlated. If you add other parameters, they could be mentioned oximetry, but could be biomarkers from sweat or from interstitial fluid. Either you take all of these data independently, and each of them gives you one information, or you have the capability to cross this data and see trends in the health of the individuals because the heart like this, because temperature is such, because oximetry is that. That is a predictive signal of personalized medicine that is only achievable when you have a lot of data you can put together while they are individually very different. And that's where I would mention startups because that's usually where innovation comes from. Sorry for the big companies, but that's the truth today. Startups, they take the risk of being innovative. Many fails, some succeed, and that's great. They have to take that risk being, let's say, outside of common tools and devices to really bring something different to the patients and to the clinicians. And that's also why using something that not necessarily exists, but when we saw the patch platform and you saw the platform that Nocturnal has, one of the issues startups have is money. You have to be true. The world is driven by money, and building a medical device takes millions. Saving time means saving cost, and reducing the risk means also reassuring investors. So having something quicker to the market with platforms that have been proven, it's just make it safer both for the startups and for the investor, which would be less reluctant to invest more or to reinvest. So let's say it makes everyone happy, life easier, because normal startup, they spend 50% of the time looking for money. If already that's part, they can rely on partner that make this part easier, safer, and quicker. I think everyone is winning in this situation.
Yeah, and I'll add to that we regularly get startups that come to us and they just need to gather this data. Says we just need ECG and blood oxygenation. We just need that, and we need it kind of in this location. We can't find a thing that we can just buy off the shelf that does that. So now we need to make it. Well, it's because even though everybody's gathering mostly the same sensor data, they all want to do something slightly different with it. There's a reason there is no like off the shelf. You can't do. There's a reason nobody makes a patch, for example, that can gather all the things you need as a development platform for everybody to use to try to do AI, because every application is enough different that everybody's needs are a little different in a way that you can't make one size fits all, which is not what Linxens and Nocturnal are proposing, of course. We have the core technology, we can adapt it easily, but the fundamental building blocks are something we have a lot of experience with, so we can adapt it rapidly and with much lower risk than creating it from scratch. But there's really not for anybody an existing thing you could just quick add to cart and, oh, now I have a device that will let me gather the data I need to go build my case for the FDA. That doesn't work for anybody. But what we have, I think, is the next best thing, which is we have the stuff to put together what somebody needs quickly and cost effectively, as opposed to trying to design everything from the ground up. Because things are similar enough that startups should be focusing on their special sauce, on what makes them unique. They shouldn't be spending time trying to reinvent things that Linxens and Nocturnal already know how to do. We can enable them to spend their time and money on the things that make them special and give them a space in the market.
So yeah, definitely go faster and cost effective for early stages projects. Yep. Great, thank you. Then let's move now for the Q&A session. Let's see if there is some question in the Q&A. Please, if you didn't use it, then just go to the Q&A session box and put your question in it. Maybe I can start with a question on my side. So how can this approach support FDA and CE mark submissions? Tricky.
So I think there's regulatory agencies like to see things that they've seen before, or at least similar to what they've seen before. It's the easiest thing for them to approve. Even though nothing is necessarily identical, the more you can show them stuff that they're used to seeing, the better. So when you can say, well, even though my product is unique and it's a PMA, it's similar in these ways to this other product that you've already seen before. So everything, the more you can present what you're doing, even if it is novel, as an incremental change to something that they've already approved, the better. And in this case, it's easy to see for something like stick to skin. Well, hey, we've used these adhesives and this hydrogel and these assembly techniques. Yeah, the patch was a different shape for that application, and it was a completely different signal we were measuring, but the same technologies worked. That dramatically lowers the barrier as compared to, hey, I invented this patch from scratch. You actually get similar benefit from hardware blocks and software blocks. If you can say, hey, we've used this particular software function or technique has been used in this product successfully. It's not the same product, but that certain thing has been used before and you've approved it, and we used this same documentation and you liked it. We adapted it for this new application, then that's much easier than, hey, here's a brand new thing you've never seen before. So while it's easy to see how it applies to something that touches your skin, it also applies to things like software and hardware that you can't see.
Yeah. One thing also which is important is, especially as we were talking about the startups, we have been through these processes. I don't want to say it's nice processes, but we have to for safety, CE mark or FDA. Often the startups, they don't know what they have to require from their partners. We often have the case that we ask, okay, what is the class of the device? What will be the registration? What will be the path? And what do they need from us? They often say, oh, no, it's okay. You're a subcontractor. Just need to provide the safety data sheets from your suppliers and the raw material. We say, no, we know it's not the only thing we need to do. And it's getting tighter and tighter, especially with the FDA. So even though we are not legally a medical device manufacturer, the responsibility and the process that applies to us is very close, because at the end, what leaves the factory in some cases, it's packaged product, so ready for distribution. And what FDA requires is pretty much the same thing as we would be the medical device manufacturer. So all the process, the quality system, the follow-up, and all of this is very strict. And the fact we know we can support those startups, so because you don't necessarily have the experience for this, and the fact that we advise you what should be done, making sure we are in the process, and the fact, as Casey mentioned, we have been audited for CE, for FDA, so they know us, they know how we work. It's easier for them to make sure, okay, it's a similar product. It's not exactly me too, but it's okay. It's not something we discover. They know how we work. We know the documentation. We know the traceability required. So it's much easier for implementation and deployment.
Yeah, definitely. So
Yeah,
come back
it's
to
a,
the.
it's actually I just want to carry on that a little. That's a very good point, Alex. That our clients often don't know what they need as much as we
Yeah,
know, even though we're not responsible for it in the end. We're not the manufacturer of record.
yeah,
We're not the medical device manufacturer, but we've done this so much, and we know all the things to look out for. That whether they ask for the advice or not, they honestly they're going to get it
yeah.
from both of us.
And FDA doesn't care. We just comply to what the customer requests. If we can say, hey, we have document, our customer says you just need to do this, and we did this. FDA
Yeah,
doesn't care.
no,
They say,
no. Yeah, it's a very typical case of providing our customers with what they need, not with what they've asked for.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So staying with the startups, what are the common mistakes they can make when trying to collect clinical data?
Ooh, well, I'm going to mention one of the number one mistakes that happens even before that, which is that they a lot of times will try to do too much in the first version of their product.
Yeah,
They need to do the special thing they do is A, right? This is what makes them unique in the market. This is the data that they need to gather to prove their clinical efficacy. But they look around, other products gather B, C, and D, and they're like, well, we should get that data too because we might need it. Or no, 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 no. That's fine for later, but focus on the thing that makes you special first. Put your money and your time and your
yeah,
resources into that. Get version one of the product out. Don't get distracted. The more stuff you're gathering and the more you try to do in the product, the more you have to prove to the FDA or CE regulatory authorities to show that you're doing what you say you're doing. Keep your focus narrow, do the thing that makes you special. Then once that gets there and you start to generate revenue and build value, then you can expand.
yeah. I agree, and it's very related then to the let's say the money they spend. Uh, Often they focus, well, let's say they want the product out, they want to have the best product, which is great. Sometimes they want to go too far or they want to do too much with the product, and they lack the essential of the product to get to the market and to have something ready to sell, especially since they are a startup. They don't have a lot of money, so they need to get to the market pretty quickly. And they end up, the product is ready, it works beautifully, but then they expected the product, okay, random number, they expected this to be at $10, and they figure out now, oh, it's a $40 product. It's not the business they were looking at. And just because they have been doing too much or focusing too, they want just to add stuff and making the greatest. And they focus that their value is in a core part or core functionality, which can be done greatly, fit with a business model. And that's often where they lack the focus on the business model, getting with the right product that works, really deliver at quality and at cost.
Yeah.
Because in many cases, we had to go then to redesign to cost to make sure it fits what they want, what they have to address, just because they have been focusing too much on the, let's say, the technology or just the technique itself.
Yeah, and
Sure.
it's one of those cases where the business case matters to engineering as much as
Yeah,
it matters to the eventual sales as well, because you have to future-proof your product financially and
yeah,
feature-wise. So you need to pick things that are sustainable. You know, you can get for the long term. Back to our point about redesign and
yeah,
how that changes things. So that matters. And similarly, when you're designing a product, you want to push the logic for the product, the smart stuff, the algorithm, as far up the stack as you can. You want the device closest to the patient to be doing the simplest, most fundamental thing possible, so that when you make changes to the product later, you're not having to change that. You can make changes to the mobile or the cloud,
yeah,
and because you start to otherwise you lose your economy of scale building 10,000 patches if you need to change the thing after you've only built 2,000 of them because you found out you needed to make some change that you could have made up higher in the stack. So
yeah. And that's why it's important that to consider when you're working with companies, nocturnal link sense, not subcontractor, but really partners, because as you mentioned, we insist on getting the business case reviewed just because in many cases, we know from day one what is expected is not, I mean, there is a mismatch between what the company wants to achieve and the price they want this. Just because sometimes the bill of material doesn't match. Just buying the material costs more than what they expect to sell. And we can say, no, there is something wrong. Either you have to revise your business case and sell the product at a higher price, or we have to totally rethink the product, what it does and how it's done, to make sure it matches your price, if feasible. That's another question. But to do this, we have to work openly. Like, we are open how we do the product, who will be working, what material we use, what the design, and if there's any issues or challenges. The same, we really expect that the companies work as the partners and they really open to us what they expect, what are the goals, what are the timelines, because that's really important.
Yeah, similarly, we tend to ask a lot of questions about the business case and about their roadmap and their plans for the future, a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. So that the more we know, the more we can optimize the product for what they want to do today and later. Same as what you do. Because it may be that they have plans for something 5 years from now that dramatically alters what we would do today in a simple way, right? In that we may take a very different approach on day one, but there could be multiple ways to accomplish what they need for V1 of the product, but really only one path that makes sense for their future plans. But they don't often share that stuff unless you really ask, right? Because they don't think it's relevant. They're like, I just need the thing right now. I'd like to do that later. Maybe right now I just need the thing. And we've all seen enough that we know there's multiple ways to get one thing, but only one way to get a lot in a row.
Yes. So here we are talking maybe a lot about startup, just to go back to the approach, which is, of course, suited for the startups. So we can say that a big company can benefit from it, right? Also, not only startups.
Oh, correct.
Of course.
Oh.
The challenges and the priorities are just slightly different, whether you're a startup and whether you're, let's say, a big medical device company. I don't want to cite any name, just because startups is much more limited in terms of money, resources, of course. And startup has one focus: get the product out to the market to secure investments. Okay, well, medical device companies, if it's a big one, okay, they might be 1 year, 2 year late. Okay, let's say the budget was 10 million. It's now slipped to 13 million. Okay. One will not get the bonus at the end of the year, but that's okay. They'll survive.
Yeah.
For a startup, getting a raise of 30% of expenses, it's just not viable.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. I think I don't have more questions than that, so maybe that's bring us to the end. So thank you again, everyone, for joining today. And if you are developing biosensor-based products and want to reduce risk, accelerate development, and validate your idea more efficiently, we'd love to hear from you. So to get in touch and learn more, please feel free to visit like nocturnalpd.com, if I'm not mistaken, and healthcare.linksense.com. And thanks again. And we hope to connect with you very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
you, Casey. Thank you, Sabine.